Job chapter 42, verse 5. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. This is one of my favorite verses and one of the verses that spoke to me through my journey becoming a Christian. Hello to everyone that is watching us now. My name is Juliana. I am originally from Brazil. I live in Dublin and I've been in Ireland for nearly 12 years, and I attend Ranelagh Church, which has been pretty much my church, my whole Christian journey, and a church that I hold really dear to my heart. Today I want to share a little bit of my story and all my way to be here, to be able to stand and talk to everyone and share a little bit of my testimony and how God made amazing things in my life. So growing up back in Brazil, I wasn't raised as a Christian or with any sort of religious background. So I was just growing up. I knew about God, my family believed in God, but I didn't have something to hold on to or beliefs or something that, kept me going. As I see a lot of people growing up in church and learning so much and all the stories and having faith. I did have faith, I did believe in God, but I didn't have something that I would go to in times of need or in times of gratitude. Anyhow, so I kept growing up, and when I was a child and becoming kind of a teenager, I remember many times my grandparents, they became Christian after I was probably at around my 10, 12 years old, and I heard them speaking about their faith and how that changed their lives. And to me, it was very interesting to listen to their story. And not only them, but a few other older people at the time that I always heard them saying that now I found God, and I wish that this had happened before in my life. I wish I could have all this love, all this hope, all this faith. I wish it wasn't just now after so many years. And that stuck with me in a way that I wanted to find this God. I wanted to have this faith, to believe in something bigger before I get older. Because if it is so amazing, I was like, I want to meet God now. Like I wanna find this. I want to be able to live this through my whole life. So when I was a child, going to school, a lot of my friends in Brazil, people are very religious. There's a lot of Protestant denominations, and people, they really believe in God, and you can see a lot of people having their own faith and sharing and experiencing and everything. So a lot of my friends would invite me to their churches, and I would always say yes, because I was seeking. I was always like, where is this? Where will I find this God? Where can I have this faith? And I used to go to many different churches. For many years, I still couldn't find it. I did like some, but not all. But I was like, maybe one day. And in my own ways, I used to talk to God and say, how do I find this, When I got to my teenage years, it's very common to have private schools in Brazil. And the Adventist school was private. Was one of my options when I was trying to go to a better school to prepare myself to college, adult life, and all that. So my parents at the time were willing to pay, and I went to different schools doing an exam to see how I would get on, if I could get into the school. And my best score was in the Adventist school. And funny enough, I saw that school being built since I was a child. And I had no clue that was related to a religion. To me, everything was new. When they got in touch with me and they said, oh, well, you got in, if my parents wanted me to go in, I was like, okay, happy days. But then I didn't know that was also a religion, because there were some rules you had to, abide to in order to study in that school. And I was like, okay, that's perfect, that's no problem. I was very happy to hear it was a Christian school, because I was always in this saga looking for God. So then I started studying there. And to me, it was very interesting the way we had devotionals in the morning, prayed to God, and we had a week of prayer, and we would have these moments of prayer before eating. To me, all that was really new, and it was really captivating, and something was moving in my heart. One of my friends was Adventist. She invited me to visit her church, and I did like it at the time. But then down the line, I met my, at the time, boyfriend and husband today. And his family is Adventist, and he was raised as pretty much from a very young age as an Adventist. And we started getting together, getting to know each other better until we finally started dating. And obviously, for his parents, they did raise a bit of a concern because I wasn't a Christian and I wasn't an Adventist. But his family was really kind and willing to show me about their faith, to show me about their beliefs, and that was really important in my journey. They were kind, but they were very respectful as well of the things that I would do because I didn't believe and I didn't do certain things the way they were doing it. So that time was when we finished school, so we both turned 18 and we were starting life, so everything was new. So I had a new boyfriend that went to this church, and we were both starting college, looking for our first jobs. It was a very people that are young adults now or have been young adults, they know these early 20s, it can be very complicated sometimes with the choices you have to make, the struggles you go through. And my family in particular, the issue is that they did not believe a lot, even though they believed in God. They had a lot of bad stereotypes about Christian people, and they were not really in favor of me joining a Christian church, so they were kind of against it, and I had a difficult time with that at some points. But anyways, life was happening, many things was happening. My family, it was a bit dysfunctional, and they were at times very aggressive towards me sometimes, both psychologically, mentally, and also sometimes physically. So I was going through a really difficult time, starting college, looking for a job, learning things, and I was really struggling. And then Nicholas came to me and kindly said, look, I don't know how else to help you, but if I can give you one piece of advice is, I think you need to find God. I think you need the peace you're missing, the way you're feeling sad and everything. You need to find these things that only God can give you. And he was saying that I should look, not necessarily even in the Adventist church, but he would be open to, guide me through that journey if I wanted to. And after thinking a lot, I decided I would study the Bible. But because I had heard so many bad things about the Bible before from my family and from other people, I was really skeptical about studying the Bible. I agreed anyway. I asked for his presence there with me during my studies. And I always say that my first Bible studies were not really studies. They were a questionnaire because I was literally standing in front of this really nice guy who was our religious teacher back in the Adventist school. He was a very nice, calm, very kind, gentle person. And I sat in front of him, and even though I wanted to meet this God and know about this God, I also had a lot of questions that I heard my whole life, and I was like, I doubt that the Bible will be able to answer that. And the funny thing is, I had a paper with all the questions I had, and the first studies we were going through questions. My questions, why this, why that, show me this, show me that. And it was funny that all my questions were answered in all the studies, and not by him, by the Bible. And to me that was mind-blowing, because I had heard my whole life that no, Christians cannot prove what they believe and say fully in the Bible. But every single question I had, I found the answer in the Bible. And this is how the first verse impacted my life so much, when I learned about Job's story that I read earlier in chapter 42, verse 5. He says that his ears had heard of him, but now his eyes could see him. I had this meeting with God where I actually saw that there was an answer for the things that I was looking for. And I had heard about this God, like I said earlier, about these older people saying they found God, they had peace. And now this thing that I heard about, I was seeing in front of me. And in that moment, that's when I started believing in the Bible because I saw the answers were there. And after that, and only after all those questions were answered, I actually could sit there and go through a Bible study and learn more about the amazing things God had to tell me. But then, in the middle of my study, because of location and other things that got in the way, I had to stop the study. And I was like, okay, that's it. I can't continue it now, maybe another time. My life had improved. I mentally had improved. I just felt happier than I did before, but I had to stop. So during that period that I stopped, after a while, I started missing it so much. There was this void because I was about to find out what I was looking for all my life, all my first 20-something years of my life. And then, like, that was gone. And I was like, I want more. I was still thirsty for God. So I asked Nicholas' dad, because they were always, like, giving me nice songs to listen to, nice books to read, teaching me. So I asked him, do you have a study that I can actually do it by myself? Because since I cannot go to someone to have the study, I'd love to, continue learning because it's really interesting. And yeah, so he gave me a CD that gives away a little bit of my age now. So there were CDs about the prophecy. I studying about the prophecy, about Jesus coming and second coming and everything. That to me was all new because when I started the Bible study, I was getting to know God. But the prophecy, it was really intense for someone that never heard about Jesus, and suddenly, all these events and all these things. So I was going through these studies by myself. Every night I would put the CD on my computer and listen and take notes and everything. And the big game changer to me was I heard about Jesus. And I knew he died on the cross. And you see movies, especially during Easter, everyone turns to the cross during certain times and they say, oh look, that man died. The thing I didn't know is the reason why. I never understood. And with the prophecy, I understood he had given his life to me, freely, to me, to you, to everyone that is here, to everyone that was here, and to everyone that is yet to come. And that to me was the big discovery of my life, because I did not understand the power of love that could possibly exist. And that shook my life in a way that I could never go back to be who I was. Now that I understood this man was here as a man and he died and he went through all that pain for me. Me, who am I? So that was the big division of my life when I understood that that's not just a movie, that's not just a story to tell. It's actually an action of selfless and an action of love and hope. And you cannot stay the same when you learn that. And I couldn't. So I kept on studying and everything. But as I said, so those studies, I had to hide them from my family. My family did not know I was going through that journey. So I had to lie to them that I was going through the studies, because otherwise I was still just a young person and, I was fully dependent on them financially, living with them and everything. So I was still under their roof, as they say, and but I could not tell them I was taking a Bible study. Otherwise, things could go in a very wrong and bad direction. So I was hiding those studies, and like I said, I had a lot of struggles with my family at the time, many struggles. And during this time, when I went back studying the prophecy, things got a little bit worse than they were, and I started getting into the depression and sadness that, it didn't matter what I was doing, it was living in me, and I felt like I wasn't myself a lot of the times. Even though with the studies and everything, I felt a little bit lost. So I remember, and this is when my big day, I say, my big commitment came. One of the days there were a lot of disagreements in the house, a lot of lot of raised voices and very difficult fights on that day. And I went to bed, and I couldn't sleep that night. I was just there, and I just couldn't put myself to sleep. I was crying, and I felt this never-ending sadness and this feeling of giving up and this feeling of hopelessness, and I just couldn't find the answer to anything, even though I had met God. And I know sometimes we don't say this publicly, but I did get angry at God that night. I actually said, I went on my knees crying in the middle of the night, and I said, God, I do believe you exist. I do believe in the Bible. I do believe in your truth. But where are you now? Where are you in my suffering? Where are you when I mostly need you? Why aren't you helping me? Why aren't things getting better? Quite the opposite, getting a lot worse. I was like, I was feeling this emptiness, and I was feeling so lonely that night, and I was begging God for help. I was like, I don't feel like I want to try anymore. It is too hard. My suffering is never ending, and I don't feel like you are with me as I am with you. I'm doing everything I could. At the time, I was doing college, but the way God was moving my life, I used to have classes on Saturday, but because I was understanding the Bible and the commandments and everything, I stopped going to my classes on Saturday. I was changing my life, you know, the true conversion, when you believe what God is and what He's done for you. And I was trying to. So in my perception, I thought I was doing everything I could do for Him, but where was He? Why was He not doing the same? Why was my life? Why I had that conflict that day in the house? Why things got a lot worse than before? And then in my prayers, at one point I was so desperate, and I said to God, do you know what? Maybe you are here, but do you know what the problem is? I cannot see you. I cannot hear you. So people say you bring relief to their lives, you bring hope and you bring love, but how? If I can't see you, if I don't hear you, I don't know what you have to say to me, because I cannot wait for a sign. Things are just getting worse and worse and worse, and I need to know if you are with me and if you are going to do something for me. So I sat there crying, and then I decided to get my Bible, and I said to God, I wish you could speak to me. And if the Bible is your word, I want you to use the Bible to talk to me. So when I open the Bible now, I want to know, I want to be certain that you can hear me, that you see me, that you feel my pain, and that you are caring about me. So please talk to me. So it was something I used to believe. I opened my Bible without looking, and I just started reading. And you can read it at home, the whole chapter if you want after, but it was in Psalm 116. I love the Lord, for He heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy. Because He turned His ear to me, I will call on Him as long as I live. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of His faithful servants. There was no doubt that God was listening to me and that He was trying to help me. He spoke to me that night. And the moment I read that whole psalm, I just felt such peace inside my heart. It was like nothing that I was feeling, it was there anymore. I just felt such protection, such care. And I couldn't stop crying because I was there fighting God. I was there feeling angry with God, but He still never gave up on me. Even when I wanted to give up, He showed me He was there looking for me. That day I made a pact with God. He's made a pact with us. He's promised salvation. He's given us graciously. But that day I made a pact with God. and I said, from this day on, even when the hardest time, the darkest time comes, even the worst thoughts when they come to my head, I will remember this day that you showed me how much you care. And I will live a life now that I dedicate to you, because it is because of you that I am here still standing, because of your love, because of your mercy. So that day I made this covenant between me and him to say, I will be with you no matter what happens, no matter how difficult my life gets. And I can tell you that it has got a lot difficult. After that day, it was like I had taken more than 100 kilos off my back. I could feel that he was helping me to carry my burden. And there's that story that says when your burden is too heavy, he doesn't carry it for you, he carries you. And I felt that for a long period of my life, God was carrying me. After that, darker times came, more difficult challenges. But I could overcome them because I was with God. I kept doing my studies, my Bible studies, without my parents knowing. And at one point, I could not keep it to myself anymore. I had a conversation with Nicholas, and he was like, you need to tell them, because you're denying your God. You need to tell them that's your faith, that's what you believe, that's what God has done in your life. And they were not very happy when I told them about me becoming, because I wanted to baptize, I wanted to be open about it, I wanted to talk about the love of God. And when I told them, they were not very happy. And after that, a few weeks later, we found out that my younger brother, he had cancer, and he went through a very difficult time health-wise. And during that time, when things got really complicated, when the doctors couldn't give the answers, the only hope they had to come from God. And that's when they turned to me and they were like, help us, pray for us. And they accepted my faith. And I waited until the end of the treatment that my brother had to do, continued my Bible studies, and at age 23, just one day before my birthday, I wanted to show everyone publicly of my decision, and I got baptized on the 30th of October, back 13 years ago, and that's when I made it public, to show the amazing changes that God had done in my life. I soon after came to live in Ireland, so I had just become an Adventist, so that's why I say Ranelagh has been the church that embraced me, and that's where I've lived my journey. Today I am the young adults leader, and I try to be active, and I try to fulfill my promise with God as much as He fulfills His promise in my life. And I really hope that people can also feel His love in their life and make a commitment to love Him back as much as He loves us.